I still remember the night my mom told me to leave. It wasn't some heated argument or a sudden outburst. No, it was calm, planned, almost rehearsed. That made it worse. I was 19, fresh out of high school, working part-time at a grocery store while saving for college. My dad had died when I was 12, and for a long time, it was just mom and me. We weren't rich, but we made it work. Pizza on Fridays, late-night movie marathons, inside jokes. We were a team. But that all changed when Steve came along. He was charming at first, the kind of guy who always had a smile and a story ready. Mom met him at the bank where she worked, and within months, he was practically living with us. I didn't mind at first. Mom deserved happiness, but something about Steve always felt off. He'd make little comments. You should be more of a man, or back in my day, kids your age already paid rent. He said it like a joke, but the look in his eyes wasn't funny. He didn't like me, and he didn't try to hide it. I tried to keep the peace for Mom's sake, but slowly, he started taking over everything. The TV remote, the fridge space, even how Mom talked to me. It went from, "Hey honey, can you take out the trash?" to, "Steve thinks you should be more responsible. Steve thinks. Steve says. Steve wants." One night, I came home from work and found all my stuff packed in boxes by the front door. I froze. "Mom, what's going on?" She couldn't look me in the eyes. "Honey, Steve and I think it's time you learn to live on your own." "What? I'm working part-time. I can't even afford rent." Steve stepped out from behind her, arms crossed. "You'll figure it out. You're a grown man now. Time to stop freeloading." "Freeloading?" I snapped. "I pay for groceries half the time, and I've been saving for college." He smirked. "Then you'll have no problem finding your own place." I looked at my mom, hoping she'd defend me. She didn't. Tears blurred my vision. "You're seriously letting him do this?" she whispered. "It's for the best, sweetheart. Steve says it's the only way you'll grow." That was it. That was the moment I realized my mom had chosen him over me. I grabbed my boxes, walked out, and didn't look back, even though every step felt like my heart was cracking. The first few nights were hell. I slept in my beat-up Honda Civic behind the grocery store where I worked. Showers came from the gym. Meals were whatever I could afford from the dollar menu. My coworkers noticed something was wrong, but I kept it vague. Just working through stuff, I'd say. The truth was too humiliating. Eventually, my manager, Martha, found out I was living in my car. She didn't say much, just tossed me a spare key after closing one night and said, "There's a spare couch in the break room. Don't tell corporate." I could have cried. For the first time in weeks, I slept without worrying about someone calling the cops on me. A month later, she helped me find a tiny studio apartment above a laundromat. It wasn't much, but it was mine. I got a second job doing deliveries to keep up with rent. Days blurred into nights, but for the first time, I started feeling free. No more walking on eggshells, no more Steve thinks. Still, I missed my mom. I called a few times, but she stopped picking up and after Steve answered once and said, "She doesn't want to talk to you until you grow up." That line burned itself into my brain. So I decided to prove him wrong. Over the next few months, I worked non-stop. Grocery shifts during the day, delivery runs at night. I barely slept, but I saved every dollar I could. When my old laptop finally died, I used the last of my savings to buy a used one and started learning basic coding online. I'd always loved tech. My dad used to fix old computers for fun, and I guess some of that rubbed off on me. I watched tutorials between shifts, practiced building websites, and joined online freelancer forums. At first, no one hired me. I was just some kid with no experience. But then, I landed my first $100 gig, making a website for a small bakery. It wasn't much, but it felt like winning the lottery. That one job led to another, then another. I learned fast, built a portfolio, and soon realized I was making more from freelance gigs than both my day jobs combined. By the end of the year, I quit the grocery store, rented a slightly better apartment, and started a small web design business. I didn't have much, but I had earned every bit of it, on my own. No Steve thinks needed, but life has a funny way of coming full circle. About a year after my mom kicked me out, I was sipping coffee in my small home office when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. "Hello? Hey, is this Tyler?" a voice said, low and uncertain. "Yeah, who's this?" It's Steve, your mom's husband." I froze. I hadn't heard that voice in over a year. He cleared his throat. Look, I know this is awkward, but I heard you're running some kind of web business now. Yeah, why? He sighed. I started a construction company a few months back, and we need a website. I saw your portfolio online. You do good work. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The man who called me a freeloader was asking me for help. I almost laughed when I realized who it was. Steve, the same man who kicked me out of my home, who called me lazy, who made my own mother turn against me, was now calling me for a favor. I leaned back in my chair, trying to sound calm. You need a website, I said slowly, and you want me to build it. Yeah, he replied. Look, I know we didn't exactly get along before, but this is business. I'll pay whatever your usual rate is. His tone was rehearsed, the voice of a man trying to sound confident while choking on his own pride. For a moment, I didn't answer. I wanted to hang up. I wanted to tell him to go to hell. But something stopped me. This was the same guy who once told me I'd never amount to anything. The same guy who made me sleep in my car for weeks. Now he was admitting I had something he needed. I couldn't resist. Sure, I said finally. Let's meet and talk details. There was a pause. Really? You're okay with that? Of course, I said, smiling to myself. Business is business. We met 2 days later at a small diner downtown. When I walked in, I spotted him instantly. Same slicked back hair, same forced confidence, but older somehow. Tired. Mom wasn't with him. He stood up as I approached, hand half raised for a handshake. Tyler, wow, you've, changed. Yeah, I said, sitting down. A year can do that. The waitress came over. Steve ordered black coffee. I didn't order anything. I wasn't planning to stay long. So, I said, folding my arms. Tell me about this business. He cleared his throat. Right, it's a construction and remodeling company. I started it a few months ago after I got laid off from the plant. We've got a few small projects lined up, but, we need more clients. That's where you come in. He slid a crumpled brochure across the table. The logo was awful, pixelated, with Comic Sans font. I almost laughed out loud. I need a proper website, he continued. Something that looks professional. You'd handle the design, maybe some marketing stuff if you know that area. Do you have a budget? I asked. He hesitated. Well, I can't pay up front, but once we get a few clients, I raised an eyebrow. So, you're asking me to work for free, again. His jaw tightened. No, I didn't mean it like that. Steve, I said calmly, leaning forward. Last year you threw me out of my house. I was sleeping in my car while you were sitting in my mom's living room, probably watching my Netflix account. And now you want me to help you. For free? He didn't respond. Just looked down at his coffee like it might give him an answer. Finally he said, Look, I screwed up, okay? I was under pressure. I thought I was doing the right thing. Your mom said, Don't, I cut him off. Don't blame her for what you did. Silence. The kind that makes the whole room feel smaller. I took a deep breath. I'll build your site, but it's not going to be cheap. You'll pay my rate, $2,000 minimum. He looked stunned. $2,000 for a website? That's actually below average, I said. But I'm feeling generous today. He rubbed his temples, muttering something under his breath. Fine, I'll figure it out. Over the next week, I worked on his site. Not because I wanted to help him, but because I wanted to see just how far he'd go to swallow his pride. Every time he sent me an email starting with, Hey Tyler, I felt a dark satisfaction. Each payment request, each edit note, each thank you chipped away at the arrogance I remembered from before. A few days in, I got an email from him at midnight. From Steve Miller. Subject, quick question. Hey Tyler, this is looking great so far. I appreciate you doing this, man. By the way, I'm sorry about how things went last year. I shouldn't have treated you like that. I really hope your mom and I can make things right someday. I stared at the screen for a long time. Apologies were easy when someone needed you. I didn't reply. A week later, I met with him again to hand off the final product. He looked rough, tired, unshaven, stressed. So, he asked, as I pulled up the demo site on my laptop. What do you think? I clicked through the pages. Sleek, responsive, professional. His jaw dropped. "Holy crap," he muttered. "This looks amazing. You did all this yourself?" "Yeah," I said flatly. "Somehow managed to figure it out without a roof over my head last year." He winced. "Tyler!" "Relax," I said, shutting the laptop. "Your site's done. I'll send the invoice." He nodded, reaching for his wallet. "Can I pay in installments? We're still waiting for a couple of clients to sign." "Sure," I said, "but you'll sign a contract first. I don't do handshake deals anymore." He chuckled weakly. "You've gotten tough." I smiled. "You made me that way." After that, I didn't see him for a while, but every couple weeks I'd get random updates. He'd forward me leads from his site, ask for small tweaks, stuff like that. It was surreal, getting polite messages from the man who once called me useless. But the real shock came a few months later. One morning, I got a call from my mom. "Tyler?" Her voice was shaky, nervous. "Mom?" I hadn't heard from her in nearly a year. "Is everything okay?" She sighed. "I don't know how to say this, Steve. His company's not doing well. He took out loans he can't pay back. The bank's after him, and I interrupted. "Mom, why are you telling me this?" She hesitated. "Because he said you're the only one who might help. He wants to meet." I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because of the insanity of it all. The man who threw me out is now broke and needs my help again. That's rich. "Please," she said softly. "Tyler, he's scared. I know what he did was wrong, but you still took his side," I snapped, "when I needed you." There was a long silence. Then she whispered, "I was wrong. I see that now." For a moment, I didn't know what to say. I'd waited a year to hear those words, but instead of feeling satisfied, I just felt tired. "I'll meet with him," I said finally. "But not for him. For you." The next day I met Steve again. This time I chose the place, my office. It wasn't huge or fancy, but it was mine. A small downtown space with a glass door that said, "Henderson Webb and Design." The kind of place I dreamed of when I was living in my car. When he walked in, he looked like a completely different person. His confident stride was gone. His suit was wrinkled, eyes hollow from sleepless nights. "Nice place," he muttered, glancing around awkwardly. "Didn't expect you to have your own office." I leaned back in my chair. "You didn't expect a lot of things about me." He swallowed. "Look, I know you're busy, but I really need help. The business tanked. Clients backed out. The website's great, but we can't get enough traffic. I'm drowning here." "So what are you asking for exactly?" I said evenly. He hesitated. "I was hoping maybe you could handle our marketing, social media, ads, maybe help me get some clients through the site." I stared at him for a few seconds, letting the silence do the talking. "Steve," I said finally, "you understand that kind of work isn't cheap, right?" He nodded quickly. "Yeah, I know, but I can't afford to pay you right now. Maybe a partnership. I give you a percentage of every project we land." I tilted my head. "You're asking me to go into business with the man who kicked me out of my home?" He sighed. "I know how that sounds, but I'm desperate. I messed up. I said things I shouldn't have said. You didn't deserve what happened, Tyler. That last part caught me off guard. I'd imagined hearing an apology 100 times, but never thought it would sound this defeated." He looked down. "Your mom was right. You're a good kid. You worked hard. I see that now." My throat tightened for a moment, but I kept my voice steady. "Does Mom know you're here?" "She does," he said quietly. "She wanted to come, but I told her not to. She's ashamed." I nodded slowly. "She should be." He didn't argue. I stood up, walked to the window, and stared out at the street below. For a year, I'd carried this mix of anger and hurt like a weight around my neck. And now, the man who caused it all was standing in front of me, asking for my help again. But this time, I held all the power. It should have felt good. It didn't. I turned around. "I'll help you, Steve, but not because I forgive you, because this is business. You'll sign a contract, and I'll own 40% of your company." He blinked. 40%? That's almost half. "That's the price of experience," I said. "You need clients, I can bring them, but you don't get to ask for mercy. Not anymore. He stared at me, torn between pride and survival. Finally, he nodded. Okay, deal. Over the next month, I went all in. I revamped his brand, optimized his website for search, ran targeted ads. Within weeks, he started getting calls, real clients, solid contracts. His crew went from 2 guys and a pickup to 5 employees and steady work. He couldn't believe it. This is insane, he said one morning as we reviewed numbers. I haven't seen business like this in years. People pay for results, I said. That's something I learned the hard way. He looked at me with a strange mix of pride and guilt. You're good at this, Tyler. Really good. Yeah, I said. Turns out being kicked out is great motivation. He didn't respond, just nodded slowly, eyes heavy with regret. Then, one Friday afternoon, my mom showed up at my office. She stood in the doorway, clutching her purse like it was a shield. Tyler, she said softly, you've really built something here. Yeah, I said. Had to. I know, she whispered. I've been meaning to call. I just didn't know what to say. I kept my arms crossed. Try, I'm sorry. It's a good place to start. Tears welled in her eyes. I am sorry. I was stupid. I let someone convince me that you were the problem when really I should have protected you. I didn't say anything. The silence hung between us like a wall. Steve told me everything, she said finally, about how you helped him, about the contract. You didn't have to do that. I shrugged. Business is business, she shook her head. No, Tyler, that's not business. That's forgiveness. I sighed. No, Mom. Forgiveness would be helping him out of kindness. I gestured around the office. This is me winning. She wiped her eyes. You sound just like your father when you say that. That hit harder than I expected. Over the next few weeks, things stabilized. Steve's company grew, and because of our agreement, I made a solid income from my share. But more importantly, Mom started calling me again. Just to talk, to ask about my day, to tell me about the little things she used to share before Steve came along. For the first time in years, we started rebuilding something like a relationship. One night, she invited me to dinner. It felt strange walking back into that house. The same walls, the same photos on the mantle, except one new picture of her and Steve at some company event. He greeted me awkwardly. Hey, Tyler, glad you could make it. Sure, I said, setting down my jacket. You've got a nice place. He laughed weakly. Yeah, though I might have to sell it soon if things don't pick up again. Mom shot him a look, but I ignored it. Dinner was quiet at first. Then Mom finally said, You know, it's funny how things work out. The person we thought needed help ended up being the one helping us. I smiled faintly. Yeah, life's weird that way. Steve nodded, staring at his plate. You proved me wrong, Tyler, completely. I looked at him for a long second and said, You didn't just underestimate me, Steve. You tried to break me, but you know what? You only made me stronger. He nodded slowly. I know, and I'll never forget that. For the first time, I believed him. That night, after dinner, Mom hugged me at the door. I'm proud of you, honey, I hesitated, then hugged her back. For a moment, it felt like old times, just Mom and me again, before everything went wrong. As I walked to my car, I looked back at the house one last time. The place that once broke me didn't have power over me anymore. I'd built my own home, my own future, my own life, and somewhere deep down, I realized I had finally let go. A year later, I barely recognized my own life. My company had grown fast, too fast, honestly. I'd gone from freelancing in a cramped studio apartment to running a small team of 5. We had clients all over the state now, restaurants, law firms, contractors, even a couple of schools. And ironically, one of my biggest clients was still Steve's construction company, which was now partly mine. I didn't gloat about it. I didn't need to. Success is loud enough on its own. Mom and I talked often now. She'd started going back to school for accounting, something she'd always wanted to do but never had the courage to pursue. She sounded happier, lighter, more her again. But Steve, he wasn't doing so well. The business had hit another slow patch. He'd taken on too many projects, and his finances were stretched thin. One afternoon, he called me, his voice tight with stress. "Tyler, I need you to handle the marketing again. We're not getting enough leads. I'm running out of cash." I rubbed my temples. "You have access to all the tools, Steve. You just need to use them." "I know, but you're better at this," he pleaded. "Please, man, I'm desperate." The tone in his voice, I'd heard it before, a year ago. The same desperation I once felt when he threw me out. "Come by the office tomorrow," I said. "We'll talk." He showed up looking worse than ever. Sunken eyes, stubble, wrinkled clothes. The kind of man who'd been carrying too much for too long. "Rough week?" I asked, motioning for him to sit. He sighed heavily. "You have no idea." I nodded slowly. "Actually, I do." He looked up, confused. "What do you mean?" "You remember when you said kicking me out would make me a man?" I said quietly. "You thought struggle builds character, as long as it wasn't your struggle." He looked down, ashamed. "I slept in my car for weeks," I continued. $8 menu meals, showered at the gym, and worked 3 jobs. You wanted me to grow up? I did. Now, you're the one who needs saving." He swallowed hard. "You're right, I deserve that." I studied him for a moment. "You do. But I'm not going to kick you while you're down, Steve. I'm not you." He looked up, surprised. "I'll handle the marketing," I said. "We'll get the company back on track. But there's one condition." He straightened up, wary. "What condition?" "You step down, fully. Hand over the company to Mom." He blinked. "What?" "You heard me. She's the only reason I'm even considering helping. She supported you for years, even when you didn't deserve it. It's time she got something back." He stared at me for a long time, and for the first time since I'd known him, I saw tears in his eyes. "She deserves it," he whispered finally. "You're right." 2 weeks later, the papers were signed. My mom became the official owner of Miller Home Renovations, and I rebranded the company under a new name, Henderson & Co. Design + Build. She was nervous at first, said she didn't know how to run a business, but with a bit of help, she picked it up fast. She handled the finances, Steve stayed on as a project manager, and I oversaw the marketing and tech. It wasn't just a family business, it was a second chance. Months passed. The company grew stronger than ever, our relationship slowly healed, and for the first time, everything felt balanced. Then one Friday evening, Mom invited both of us to dinner again, a tradition we'd quietly revived. When I walked in, I noticed something different. The tension that used to hang in the air between us was gone. Steve greeted me at the door, wearing a clean shirt and a humbled smile. "Hey, Tyler, thanks for coming." "Of course," I said, shaking his hand. "How's work?" He chuckled softly. "Busy, but good. Feels, different now, you know, working for someone I respect." I raised an eyebrow. "You mean Mom?" He grinned faintly. "Yeah, and you." We sat down for dinner, laughter, stories, and a lightness I hadn't felt in years. At one point, Mom looked between us and said, "You two came a long way from where we started." Steve nodded. "Yeah, guess life has a funny way of teaching humility." I smiled. "And karma has perfect timing." After dinner, I stepped outside to leave, and Steve followed me onto the porch. He hesitated before speaking. "I wanted to thank you, Tyler. Not just for helping with the business, but for everything." I turned to him. "You don't need to thank me. Just don't waste this chance." He nodded. "I won't. You taught me something I should have learned years ago, that being a man isn't about control, it's about taking responsibility." For a second I saw the sincerity in his eyes, the kind I used to wish for when I was a kid, before everything went wrong. "Take care of Mom," I said. "That's all I ask." "I will," he promised. A few weeks later, I was cleaning up my office late one night when I found an old photo buried in a drawer. Me and Mom at the beach, years ago, before Steve ever came along. We were laughing, covered in sand, sunburned and happy. For the first time in a long time, I smiled without any bitterness behind it, because I realized something. All the pain, all the nights I thought I'd never make it, they weren't curses. They were the fire that forged me. If Steve hadn't kicked me out, I never would have built the life I have now. I never would have learned what I'm capable of. I didn't just survive, I thrived. And now, every time I walk into the office with my name on the door, I remember the kid who slept in his car, the boy who lost everything and built it all back from nothing. That kid finally made it home. Epilogue, short narration wrap up. A few months later, our company was featured in a local business magazine. The headline read, "Family Business Overcomes the Odds, from Homeless to CEO." Mom framed the article and hung it in the office lobby. Steve looked at it one morning, then turned to me with a half smile. "You really did it, kid." "We did," I said. "But mostly, yeah, I did." He laughed. "Fair enough." I looked around, my mom smiling at her desk, the team chatting in the background, the hum of work filling the air, and realized that for the first time in years, I wasn't angry anymore, because revenge fades. But success, real, earned success, lasts. And sometimes, the best revenge is simply becoming everything they said you couldn't.